Welcome to another deep dive. We're going to be tackling some philosophy today. Through a whole stack of articles and blog posts we've got.
Yeah, it's going to be a really thought-provoking journey, I think.
For sure. Get ready for some real aha moments as we kind of dig into these big questions about the human experience. I guess to start, maybe we should talk about our source material.
Sure, yeah.
We've got some perspectives from academic interviews, from the APA blog. There's some stuff about AI ethics. Oh, and philosophy bits. Always love that.
Love philosophy bits, yeah.
They always have these real nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, short and sweet.
Mm-hmm. And there's some media analysis from the Jamesian blog and even a discussion on meeting ethics from Philosophy for Our Time. So it's
wow, what a mix, yeah.
a real mix, right?
It's a real deep dive this time, not just one narrow viewpoint. We're really getting a variety.
Yeah, and that's what I think allows us to really connect all these seemingly disparate ideas, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of connections, I was reading Philosophy Bits, and they had this quote from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus.
Oh, nice.
And it's pretty powerful stuff. It says, whatever principles you put before you, hold fast to them as laws, which it will be impious to transgress. But pay no heed to what anyone says of you, for this is something beyond your own control.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just reading that, it's just
It's powerful.
it's very powerful.
And you know what? It's this ancient wisdom has direct relevance to a recent story about Andrea Mitchell, the, veteran journalist.
Yeah.
Do you remember how she challenged Omar al-Bashir about the Darfur genocide?
Yes, back in 2005.
Yeah.
She was really pressing him on that.
Even though there was pressure to stay silent, right?
Yeah, and he had no good answer. It was
Right.
almost comical,
Yeah, it's her actions embody Epictetus's words. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
She stuck to her principles, regardless of the consequences, It reminds us that philosophy can be a guide for real-world courage.
That's so cool. I love how, we can look at something so long ago, but it's still so relevant.
Absolutely.
Now, let's kind of shift gears a little bit to the very nature of the self.
Okay.
Philosophy Bits also had this quote from David Hume. When my perceptions are removed for any time, as by sound sleep so long am I insensible of myself and may truly be said not to exist.
Whoa, that's a radical thought.
Right.
I mean, Hume is suggesting that our sense of self, our I, is really just this stream of perceptions, thoughts, feelings, and if those stop, do we stop?
It makes you think about sleep in a whole new way.
I know, right?
But how does this apply to, real life? I guess that's the question.
Well, imagine someone with severe dementia.
Right.
Their perceptions are so altered.
Yeah.
And this brings up this complex ethical question, especially in legal cases and the death penalty case.
Mm-hmm. That was discussed in the philosopher's blog, right?
Yes, exactly.
So if someone's sense of self is gone, is punishment even meaningful?
It's a tough question, if no easy answers, right? These situations really force us to think about what makes a person. And the purpose of punishment, it's deep.
That is deep. Speaking of pushing boundaries, let's talk about AI.
Okay.
I was reading this article in the APA blog called Falling in Love with Machines, and it really caught my eye.
Really? What's it about?
So there's this 12-year-old kid, and he believes that people will one day fall in love with machines, really fall in love. What do you think about that?
It's surprising, for sure, but, maybe not as far-fetched as it sounds.
Right.
Especially when you consider this quote from Philosophy Bits. It's by Alfred North Whitehead. He said, 90% of our lives is governed by emotion. Our brains merely register and act upon what is telegraphed to them by our bodily experience.
So if AI can mimic emotion, really well, could we be blurring the lines between human and machine?
That's a huge question, and it actually connects to another interesting perspective, this one from Hinduism.
Okay.
Philosophical guidance, they talk about the universe as the self, this vast, interconnected web of being.
Mm-hmm.
So where does AI fit into this view? Could a really advanced AI actually become part of this universal self?
That's mind-blowing.
It is, right?
It really is. It makes you reevaluate our place in the universe.
Absolutely.
And the potential role of AI. It's interesting, looking through these sources, it takes us from these individual principles all the way to, the nature of consciousness.
Right. It highlights how all these big questions are really interconnected.
Totally. Now let's turn to maybe a more political topic. The Philosopher's blog had this article about tribalism.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a concept that's both an explanation and a weapon, isn't it?
Exactly. On the one hand, it explains why people cling to certain beliefs, why they align with specific groups. It's a way to make sense of the world.
Right.
But, on the other hand, it can be used to dismiss other views.
Yeah, like, oh, you're just saying that because you're part of this tribe.
Exactly.
Like a way to shut down conversation.
Yeah, just blind loyalty, right?
So it's like this double-edged sword. On the one hand, it can be very helpful in understanding how people operate in groups.
Yeah,
But then it can also be used to prevent any kind of like meaningful conversation
absolutely.
with people who hold different views, which is kind of a problem. But hey, at least there's Discount Chocolate Day to soothe those political tensions, right?
Maybe there's hope for us yet.
According to the philosopher's blog, at least.
Yeah. This deep dive, it really makes me think about how crucial philosophy is for navigating ethics.
Yeah,
It's like a toolkit almost
it is.
for tackling these tough questions about right and wrong.
Yeah, totally. And one area where like those debates are really raging is in our relationship with animals.
Yeah.
And we actually have a source that really jumps into that. The whole ethics of eating meat.
Yes, we have that episode from Philosophy for Our Times called Humans Are Not Morally Superior.
Okay.
And it features the YouTuber Alex O'Connor, or Cosmic Skeptic.
Cosmic Skeptic, I love
I
it.
know, right? What a name. And he dissects the meat industry with some really thought-provoking arguments.
So, like, I mean, obviously most people, I think, acknowledge that eating meat involves killing animals.
Right.
But the justification often comes from, things like tradition, necessity, or taste. So how does he approach that?
He really tackles those justifications head on.
Okay,
He examines the realities of factory farming
right.
and the suffering that the animals endure. And he uses analogies, philosophical reasoning to challenge that whole idea of human moral superiority.
Mm-hmm.
And he asks us to consider, does our enjoyment of meat outweigh the pain that is inflicted on other beings?
So he's kind of advocating for a more conscious approach to what we eat?
Exactly.
Maybe even, I don't know, veganism.
Yeah, maybe even veganism. But, it's really about inviting the listener to, examine their own beliefs about animals and really consider the implications of their choices.
That's so interesting. It's a good example of how philosophy isn't just about these like abstract ideas. It's about like real-world choices
Right.
that we all make that have consequences, for ourselves, but also for others.
For sure. And those choices often involve juggling competing values and principles,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's where I think philosophy can be so valuable.
Totally.
It gives us a framework for weighing those different perspectives
Yeah.
and aligning our actions with our moral compass.
It's like philosophy provides that map
Yes.
for navigating that ethical landscape, helping us like understand our values and then act accordingly. Speaking of maps,
Okay.
let's explore another kind of exploration, the pursuit of knowledge itself.
Oh, I like that.
It's like we're going meta, like exploring the act of exploring.
Exactly. And Philosophy Bits actually has this great quote from Ludwig Wittgenstein.
Okay.
He says, philosophical problems can be compared to locks on safes, which can be opened by dialing a certain word or number so that no force can open the door until just this word has been hit upon. And once it is hit upon, any child can open it.
Wow.
What an analogy, right?
It really is. It suggests that like these problems, they can seem so impenetrable.
Right.
But then until we find that right way of thinking about it, the right key, so to speak,
Yeah.
then it just clicks.
And once that door's unlocked, the solution can seem so simple.
Yeah. It's like a light bulb just goes off.
Exactly.
That aha moment.
That feeling of clarity, it's so rewarding.
Yeah, it really is. And that's what makes philosophical inquiry so fulfilling, I think. It's not about memorizing facts or arguments. It's about really engaging with the ideas, wrestling with concepts, and ultimately coming to a deeper understanding.
Absolutely, yeah. Challenging our assumptions, expanding our horizons.
Totally.
It's a lifelong journey.
Yep. And it's one we never really finish, I guess.
Right.
It's like climbing a mountain. The higher you climb, the more you see.
Exactly.
But then the more you realize how much more there is to explore.
Yeah. It's amazing. And sometimes the most valuable lessons come from those detours,
Oh, yeah.
the wrong turns, the moments when we get lost
Yeah.
along the way.
It's true. Those are the moments that force us to reevaluate, like question our assumptions.
For sure.
Think creatively.
For sure.
About getting back on track. Speaking of getting back on track, let's maybe return to our sources here. We have some that are delve into some pretty, profound concepts.
We do. We have this one from Philosophical Guidance called Ultimate Reality and the Meaningful Life, Hinduism Introduction. And it really explores the Hindu perspective on the nature of reality, the meaning of life.
I'm excited to hear about this. Hinduism is such a rich philosophical tradition.
It is, and it emphasizes this interconnectedness It presents this image of the universe as the self, this vast, intricate web of being, where everything is connected.
It's a good reminder that we're not just these isolated individuals. We're part of something much larger
Yes.
than ourselves.
And that realization can be humbling,
Yeah.
but it can also be very empowering. It challenges us to see beyond our limited perspective and to recognize the worth, the dignity of all beings.
It reminds me of that saying, we're all connected, like the branches of a tree.
I love that.
It's so beautiful, right? This metaphor for the interdependence of all life. But then it also raises questions about our relationship with the natural world, our responsibility to care for the planet. And it makes me think about AI, too. If we create machines that can understand and experience the world similarly to how we do,
Yeah.
how does that change our understanding of consciousness and the meaning of life?
That is a profound question, and it's one that philosophers are really grappling with right now as AI technology continues to advance.
Yeah. It's like we're entering this uncharted territory, and the lines between human and machine are becoming increasingly blurred.
Right, and in this uncharted territory, we need that philosophical thinking more than ever to guide our actions, to help us navigate these ethical and existential challenges that lie ahead.
It's like philosophy is that compass, helping us find our way in a world that's constantly changing. Speaking of change and evolution, let's turn to a source that examines a concept that I think is like deeply intertwined with human nature,
Okay.
tribalism.
Oh, yes. The Philosopher's Blog had a fascinating article on that. It explores how tribalism can be a force for good, but also a very dangerous source of conflict.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword for sure. On the one hand, it can foster a sense of belonging, community, shared purpose.
Absolutely.
But then on the other hand, it can lead to this us versus them thinking,
Yeah.
prejudice, discrimination. It's natural, I think, for humans to want to seek out those who are like them.
Mm-hmm.
That can also lead to exclusion and division.
Exactly. And in today's world, this increasingly polarized world, tribalism seems to be on the rise.
Yeah, it's like we're all retreating into our echo chambers, surrounding ourselves with people who agree with us, and dismissing anyone who has a different opinion.
It's scary. And that lack of dialogue, that lack of understanding, it can be so damaging to society.
It can lead to all sorts of problems, like political gridlock, social unrest, maybe even violence. So how do we combat this trend toward tribalism? How do we, bridge those divides?
That is the question. I think education is key. We need to teach people how to think critically, how to evaluate information from multiple sources, and engage in respectful dialogue with people who hold different views.
I love that. And I also think we need to foster empathy,
Yes.
understanding. We need to remember that even those we disagree with are human beings with their own experiences.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that shared humanity, even amidst our differences.
Yeah. And that's something that I think philosophy can help us with.
I agree.
It teaches us to see the world from multiple perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
to question our assumptions, and recognize the limits of our own knowledge.
It's about embracing humility,
Yes,
recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
which can be such a liberating realization, right? It frees us from needing to be right all the time.
Yeah.
It opens us up to learning and growing from people who think differently.
It's about shifting from a mindset of competition
Yeah,
to collaboration.
and that shift in mindset is so crucial for creating a more just and equitable society,
I agree.
right? A society where differences are celebrated, not feared, and we work together to solve these challenges.
A lofty goal, but one worth striking for.
I agree, and I believe that philosophy can play a vital role in achieving that.
Absolutely.
It's like that roadmap to
Yeah.
a better future.
A future where reason and compassion prevail,
Exactly.
and understanding.
Yes, and where we recognize that pursuit of knowledge and wisdom
Mm-hmm.
is a journey we undertake together.
It's amazing, right? How all these threads connect.
Yeah, like from ancient wisdom all the way to the complexities of modern life.
It really shows the power of these ideas. They resonate across time and cultures because they grapple with these fundamental questions about what it means to be human.
Speaking of resonating across time, that quote from Kierkegaard
Oh, yeah.
in Philosophy Abyss, it really struck me. He said, "It has often struck me when reading a good poem or some other work of genius that it was a good thing, after all, that I myself was not its author, for then I would not be allowed to vent my joy without fear of being accused of vanity."
That's such a great observation. It speaks to that, pure joy of experiencing a great idea or a work of art without our ego getting in the way.
Yeah,
You know?
like we can just appreciate these masterpieces with fresh eyes and genuine enthusiasm because we're not burdened by the weight of authorship.
It's so true that freedom to appreciate without the pressure to create, it's really liberating. It allows us to fully immerse ourselves in the beauty and the brilliance of someone else's work.
It reminds us that we don't always have to be the creators. We can also be the appreciators, the ones who savor the intellectual fruits of other people's labor.
And that act of appreciation is just as important as creation. It keeps the flame of knowledge and creativity burning bright.
hmm Like we're all part of this grand intellectual ecosystem
Yes.
where ideas are constantly being generated and shared and built upon.
And within that ecosystem, we each have a role to play. Whether we're planting the seeds or tending the garden, we're contributing to the growth of knowledge and understanding.
I love that analogy. Speaking of growth, our philosophical journey, it doesn't end here. This deep dive, it's been amazing, but it's really just the beginning.
Oh, absolutely. We've only scratched the surface of these topics. There's so much more to discover. It's a ponder.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? What do we want them to do with all these philosophical nuggets we've kind of uncovered?
I hope they take these ideas and run with them.
Yeah.
I hope they continue to explore these topics, dive deeper into the sources we've discussed, and form their own opinions.
I love that. It's about empowering our listeners to become active participants in this philosophical conversation, not just passive consumers of information.
Exactly. It's about encouraging them to think critically, to question their assumptions, and to engage with the world in a more thoughtful way.
Yeah, maybe even inspire them to create something of their own, whether it's writing or art, or just a new way of looking at the world.
As we've seen, philosophy, it's more than just abstract ideas. It's a way of life,
It
a
is.
way of thinking and feeling and acting in the world.
It's about embracing that curiosity, seeking knowledge, and striving to live a meaningful and fulfilling life.
And that pursuit of meaning and fulfillment, it's a journey that we undertake together, guided by reason and compassion and this deep appreciation for the wonders of the universe.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the world of ideas. Until next time, stay curious.
And stay philosophical. A CSMO.